Hey, welcome to a special episode of Vendtelligence. This took place at the 2026 Convenience U trade show. We cover topics such as micromarkets, coffee machines, ins and outs of vending. This is an episode you want to tune into. Check it out.
My name is Kayin Kelly. I am the co-founder of Vendtelligence, our podcast that I founded with Shayne here, focused on providing new operators in the vending and convenience industry the information that we never had when we were first getting into the industry, and specifically focusing on Canada. I'm also founder of Venture Group, which is a business brokerage focusing on the vending and convenience industries.
So just like my colleague said here, I'm Shane Christie, the other co-founder for Vendtelligence. Same reason why we started in the business. When we started, we didn't have any resources, any mentorship or coaches to go to, so we decided to create this platform. I also operate my own vending company called Conscious Cravens Vending. Been doing that for a few years and transitioning into this podcast here.
I'm Jeff Schiller. I think I recognize a few faces out there. I've been around a long time. I had brown hair when I started, so I'd just like to say I've been around in the industry more than 5 years, less than 40. You figure out the difference. But I started in the coffee vending business. We quickly transitioned into office coffee, where I spent the majority of my time, and now I'm on the roasting side of the business. So
I'm Amanda Marie Spilchin. I started in the industry about 11 years ago, actually as an operator, and was in the truck, filling the things like you kind of talked about, the operator side of stuff. And now I work with the Pelican Group as a micro-market specialist, really specializing on the merchandising side of things and how to work with our network to kind of grow their revenue and just make the most of their micro-market space.
So coffee is one of the fastest growing segments in workplace refreshment. Why is it such a strong opportunity right now?
it's actually a great question because the office coffee industry has been around for a long time, so it's great that it's still growing. What we see right now is coffee continues to be one of the most consumed beverages in the world, especially with Gen Z and millennials. It's only natural that would progress into the business, into the workplace, and we're seeing that happen a lot right now. The perfect storm is that coffee continues to be consumed. It continues to be one of the biggest consumed beverages in the world, and businesses are looking to bring people back. They're looking to bring millennials and Gen Z back to the office. So it sort of brewed up and became, no pun intended, it sort of brewed into the perfect storm. Businesses are saying, how do we get people back? How do we get into hybrid models? How do we bring them back to the office? Great office coffee services, great break room services. And the Gen Z and the millennials, they know really good coffee. They know where the best coffee shops. They go to Starbucks. They know where to get great coffee. They know where they get a customized coffee. So they expect that at the workplace. So businesses that can deliver that at the workplace are going to see easier retention with employees and happier employees and a better overall culture.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jeff. Amanda, I want to move on to you because you have like a nice niche portfolio here. What product trends are you seeing right now that vending operators should be paying attention to?
Really, for us, it's like paying attention to the spin on the classic products, right? So you have your Lay's, your Red Bulls, all that kind of stuff, but trying those new flavors out. Getting to know your client base and who's actually in the lunchroom and enjoying those, and not being scared to try the odd flavor. We have to remember that some of our flavors that we have here in Canada are weird to the US. Ketchup chips, anybody? Right? Say that to an American and they're like, excuse me, what? Right? And so we have to remember that some of those classics actually go so far into that. But also, when we talk about the trends, like Jeff was saying, making sure that you're paying attention to the trends of your employee base, of where you're servicing, your client base, right? That bring them back to the office. Making sure that you guys are the ones that they come to solve the problem. Offering solutions to as many of their problems as they can, so that when things happen, you're their first call, rather. And offering them solutions to the problems that those employees want to come into the office. They want to be there. And then also, if things go wrong in your market, they're not distressed because they know, it's Jeff, he'll be here tomorrow. Like, I know that guy, he'll take care of it, right? So not just on the product side, but just a trend in general.
Awesome, thank you for that.
Okay, and our next question is for Yang. So when you were operating vending routes, what signals did you have that kind of encouraged you to take the step over to either micromarts or smart coolers?
I want to maximize the number of people that will use my service. I think that was my biggest question, is I didn't want to just become sort of a last resort for people. And I wanted people to really trust the experience and the food. And so I knew vending was not appropriate if we wanted to sell a $12 meal. It's just not the thing that most people go to when they're thinking about buying fresh food, buying a healthy, high quality meal, which is how we started. So that was a big factor. The other factor is we wanted access to really different types of locations that just didn't work for micro markets, for lack of a better comparison, because micro markets relied on honor system, and people need to swipe, otherwise you're losing the money. We wanted to be in hospitals, we wanted to be in schools, we wanted to be in these environments where we can't trust everybody. It's and so how do you do both those things at the same time? Like smart stores was what made sense. Yeah.
Now, this question is for everybody on the panelists. I mentioned before, like, as a new operator coming in, like, it's difficult for us to know some of the challenges. So what's one of the biggest mistakes that each and every one of you made early in your career that taught you about growing the business?
That's going back a few years, but I would say two things come to mind instead of one. One, the requirement for capital. Coffee machines are not inexpensive and they're not getting cheaper, that's for sure. But secondly, underestimating the requisite to manage customer expectations. I think, especially in office coffee, there's a lot of your customers require this amount of service, this amount of somebody showing up, these products, delivering these products. So I think I underestimated the amount of effort involved in satisfying the customer requirements.
Going back to the operator days, I think that there was a common trend at the time with like vending specifically to just drop the machine, fill it, and walk away. And then when we got into micro markets, I found a lot of operators were kind of doing the same thing. They'd open a micro market, fill it, and kind of walk away. Micro market is not a vending machine that you can just kind of ignore and service it when you'd like to, right? You have to understand that elevated service and offer those employees something worth coming to. It's often in their lunchroom. They stare at it every single day, right? And so I think at the beginning, we didn't really have a solid plan for what that meant. And we also weren't giving our drivers the time to actually service it properly either. So we would run these routes that were used to vending, right? And so they'd get, 20 minutes a machine to fill it and be on their way? You fill a micro market in 20 minutes, it's not going to be very full and it's not going to be clean, right? And so we had to adapt the strategy. We had to make sure our drivers, who are the most important people in our business, right, that see our clients every single day and they do the work, that they get the time that they need to actually do the job properly.
Great answer. I think when I first got in, I didn't know about anything, so there was definitely a lot of problems. The biggest lesson for me is I think there are two types of, I learned that locations are all different, and trying to think about them in a very like breaststroke type of way, we made a lot of mistakes like that. And the biggest lesson was really separating out your transient locations and places where there's a lot of new people coming, like a place like Union Station, for example, or just more semi-public spaces versus spaces where you're selling to the same people over and over again. Like we made a mistake, well, we made lots of mistakes, I would say, but the strategy for these types of locations is very different, and thinking about pricing, thinking about, because one end is about retention and thinking about how you maximize long-term value. So trust is important, retention is really important. You're not trying to maximize your transactional profit, you're trying to maximize long-term profit. That's a very different problem than trying to think about like a transient location where you are thinking about how do you maximize like transaction profit. And so building strategies that are tailored to different location types, I think made quite a bit of mistakes in the past, but that's something that I wanted to share on top of what everyone else said.
I know you guys talk about adapting and how the business has evolved and changed over the years. So Jeff, I want to ask you this. Like, how has workplace coffee expectations changed compared to 10 years ago?
That's actually an easy question. So going back 10 years or more, coffee was just a service provided at the business. We had to have coffee. Even as a supplier and operator, you had very limited selection. You bring them to the same brewer, you set them up, you started selling them coffee. They had cream, sugar, cups, stir sticks. Very simple. Now we find the market that we're serving, the people, the demographic in the office, as I said earlier, they know coffee. They understand coffee. They know what good coffee is. They know what bad coffee is, and the expectation is completely different. As far as equipment, we need to provide espresso machines. People want lattes, cappuccinos, specialty beverages, all that sort of thing. Going back 10, 15 years ago, again, we had one brewer. We were just sort of at that point sort of looking at bringing on different things. But the demographic we're serving now, they know the coffee, they know the brewers, they know what they're looking for. They love specialty drinks. They want them in the office as much as they want them outside of the office.
Great, thanks for that, Jeff. Next question is for Amanda. So when you walk up to a vending machine or micro market or AI cooler, whatever it might be, what are the most common merchandising mistakes that you see operators making?
Great question.
So my first thing that I notice is that a lot of times there's no plan. It just looks chaotic. The driver just walked up to the machine, goes, this will fit, whatever, yep, okay. And so there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to the product, right? And so with my merchandising, I always create zones of product so that similar items are together so that a customer can come up to it and say, I really want something sweet, or I want something salty. I want a hard candy versus a gummy candy, and they just know where to look. Second thing is that I think during the pandemic, there was a trend of putting things like colors together. And so the problem with that, though, is that if a customer is not really paying attention, they're not seeing the product. They're just seeing green, for example. They're not really differentiating that it's a 7-Up versus a Sprite versus a Canada Dry. And confused minds don't make decisions. So more than likely, if they don't see a product, there's nothing in the, there's nothing here, I'm out, and they just won't buy it, right? So having a layout that makes sense, that's organized, and that people can actually take time to see the product goes a long way. And then the last thing is cleanliness. And it counts as merchandising to me, because if you walk up to a machine and it's disgusting, you're not going to want to eat it. And we know that as humans. If you go home after being at this trade show tonight and you go into your kitchen and it's a disaster, it's dirty, there's dust bunnies, there's dishes everywhere piled in the sink, are you going to make dinner? No, you're going to order takeout because it's gross. Micro markets are the exact same way. Vending machines, if they're dirty and disgusting, people do not want to buy from them. And so to me, I lump that in as merchandising too. It matters.
All right, note to self, I'm going to go to my locations and clean all my vending machines.
Have Amanda Marie go first.
Right?
Yeah, I'll inspect
Amanda,
them for you.
Yeah, please come and inspect all my vending machines.
You got it. No problem.
You know what?
You should be careful what you ask for.
Right? This is a little bit of a selfish question for me here too. As a vending operator, I operate traditional coffee vending machines. But so Yang, I want to know, to operators like myself and the newer operators, what mistakes do operators make when they want to transition into the micro market world?
New operators specifically. I think a lot of operators, so just for context as well, Micromart has been quite successful for new operators. We actually, majority of our customers are new operators, and like super new, like first machine ever, because they got excited about a video they saw about passive income. They thought it was very little work. They don't have to do anything, and then they just get in and buy a machine. They expect everything to make money day one. So, so the big challenge, I think, a lot of times for us is how do you educate this customer who's super ambitious and not very thoughtful about choosing the right location, being very methodical about saying no to specific bad locations, and then trying to make everything they're just the expectation is too high, I would say, to start. So the education is definitely a challenge. I think a lot of times mistakes can be avoided if they just thought through, like what Amanda's saying, have an intentional planogram, have an intentional location within the building. Sometimes they'll put it in a really bad area in the building when they could have negotiated a little bit harder to try to get into a better spot. Just spending a little bit more time to fight for the most optimal location, I think, for new operators, that's where I see the winners versus a lot of the ones that aren't doing as well. So, I mean, there's quite a bit.
Okay, so this next question is for the whole panel. It's one of my favorite questions we have here. So, if somebody had $20,000 to invest in their business next year, where would you recommend that they put it?
I would look for a different business. I would, specifically in the coffee industry, I would apply that towards capital with the direction that of equipment, the sophisticated equipment out there. Capital is going to be extremely critical. So for me, it's an easy answer. Any extra money sitting around is going into the capital budget.
Makes sense?
Okay, my answer may be a little bit different, but I think it's human capital. I think you take that money and you invest it in auditing your current setup. Is it working, right? Spend some money and have an employee audit your locations. What's working well, what's not? You know, often we have operators that have these incredible CRM softwares. We have all this data, but who's looking at it? Who's actually taking the time to do the analysis, right? And so, you know, you could take some of that investment and put it to good use, kind of behind the scenes, so you can work in your business, on your business, and get it growing to the next level.
$20,000. I think so. The question is around like where should the operators spend $20,000?
Yeah, somebody who's already operating their business, if they got an extra 20K, where should they put it?
I think if they can, they should add a freezer into their existing locations. And this is a relatively new thing where, you know, AI, talk about AI coolers, but AI freezers is a relatively new thing. And they don't cannibalize the rest of the product, right? So if you have a location with a fridge and a pantry, it's making maybe $3,000-4,000 a month. You want to grow it to 6,000, 7,000. Pretty easy thing to do is just add a freezer, because you know you're increasing basket size, increasing conversion, without cannibalizing anything else.
So this next question is for Jeff. What are the operational challenges that operators should prepare for when adding in coffee service?
So I think for this, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. One of the mistakes I made is I think it's important to understand the expectations of the customer. They've evolved over the years. What they're looking for is a sophisticated service, somebody who's going to come in, take control of their break room, understand what they need, bringing in the proper equipment, bringing in the proper services. The second part of that is once you start bringing in the proper equipment, let's say bean to cup machines, for example, they require a significant amount of service. They require somebody on a regular basis to be there cleaning them, servicing them, keeping them up and running, calibrating, which is very essential in my opinion. So I think understanding what the customer is going to need, the difference in service requirements, the difference in what you have to bring to the table, the difference in equipment, you have to be prepared for that. You have to think that through. You have to really understand what's going to be involved because it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Very complex, but thank you for that. Now, as a new operator coming into the business, I get like very excited sometimes. So like I like to try new products and see what's being sold. So Amanda, I feel like you could help me out with this one. So how should an operator balance from proven sellers compared to trying new products out?
I think it's always kind of fundamental to have your core product line, right? Like everybody loves a Kit Kat. You know what I mean? Lay's Regular is still one of the top selling chips. So, you know, if you take your core selection, say, you know, you have all these products, 80-90% of them are your core varieties, maybe different flavors. Maybe you're carrying a tropical Red Bull and then you switch it up to another Red Bull, but it's kind of the core. And then you have that, you know, 10%, 5-10% that you're fluctuating through. And it doesn't need to be a ton of items, right? Maybe you have 1 or 2 selections per category. They're going to try and rotate every other month or something. For some higher price items, especially when it comes to like fresh food, I like to do a tasting. So I'll have the supplier provide me with a few sandwiches, we'll cut them into pieces and kind of do a taste testing on the spot with the locations, especially for those higher price items where they know they can taste and see the value versus just kind of throwing it in the market and hoping that they see it, right? So yeah, just keep it the same or keep it consistent and then have that 5-10% of fluctuation room to try new products.
Okay, when I get very excited and I want to throw new products in, I gotta call you. Okay?
One of, if not the most important things with this type of business, location, location, location. Now, Yang, I know in your previous presentation, you kind of spoke a little bit about it, and you touched on it a little bit earlier as well. Obviously, every location is a little bit different, but we'd like to get your perspective on which locations perform best for smart coolers and which kind of look good on paper, but they may not actually perform very well.
Great question. Great question on the previous one as well. I think locations that currently do really well at Micromart smart stores are residential buildings. Probably not many of you are servicing residential buildings, and it's mostly workplaces, but we are seeing a massive growth in residential buildings, primarily because there's no competition. There's no existing vendor that you have to displace. There's no complicated corporate contracts that needs to be agreed upon and HR people to solve. So a lot of times it's just negotiating the location and a revenue share. There are differences between residential buildings. Some of them are good on paper. Like they'll say, hey, it's like 500 people, but then it's in a parking lot and it's really 50 people. So the important thing is getting to a really high traffic area within the building and driving as much daily visibility as possible, and then having the best machine to convert that visibility into purchase. The types of products are also really important. I think the winners are intentional about increasing basket size, like thinking about day parts intentionally, thinking about combos intentionally, thinking about high margin products versus new and hip products. At the end of the day, you got to make money and you have to look at the data. The people that are really focused on iterating their business versus the ones that sort of build it and they'll come, like that mindset, I think is not the case if you're trying to do something very novel, right? And this is very novel. Like smart stores are very new. The data is limited. There's not that much best practices even. So it's about discoverability. It's about iterating. It's about looking at what's selling, what's not selling, and literally every week making some changes to the planogram. And I think a lot of times the people that are doing that are finding the success even with fewer people. So I guess to summarize, residential buildings that have a lot of people that have a really good spot are doing quite well. But the sky's the limit.
Thanks for that answer, Yang. Now, again, I'm always targeting the new operators here. And I always want to see, we talked about location, and you gave us that nice complex answer for location. I'm also want to touch on opportunity and growth. So to everybody here on the panel, where do you see the biggest growth opportunity in unintended retail today?
In unattended retail specifically. So I think the opportunity is combining really all the different things we have at the table. It's about owning the break room experience in its entirety. So rather than just offering coffee, sandwiches, baked goods, all that sort of thing, in whatever capacity works. So I think the opportunity is having all three things at your disposal and properly utilizing them.
Good answer.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're not already doing micro markets or the cooler system, you gotta look at it, because when we first kind of started this program and working in this, if I had $1 for every time a vending operator told me micro markets wouldn't work in Canada, I'd have a lot of dollars, right? And here we are. It's a totally different industry in the last 5 years, and it will be another, like a totally different industry in the next 5 years. So being the person that your clients can go to solve multiple problems, kind of like I mentioned earlier, is going to be the ticket. It's going to be the thing. You have to innovate. You have to expand and bring in new ideas and really serve the clientele that you're working with.
Definitely a little bit of everything, but I do also think that vending itself is transforming as an industry. And for someone who's fairly new to the space, I see it every day. Like the types of operators that are getting in are different. They're not the traditional operator. They're thinking about data. They're thinking about leveraging AI. They're thinking about, apps. And it's more sophisticated, and I think the consumer is more sophisticated. So the opportunity is to elevate this industry into what Uber has done, what DoorDash has done, what Airbnb has done, to respectively old industries like taxi and hotels, right? Like those are the opportunities that I see, is instead of everybody fighting for a very small niche market that's quite fragmented as a whole, not only in Canada but also in the US and the rest of the world, but how do you turn vending and unattended retail into retail? Like that would be my biggest question. And who are the operators that are excited and ambitious enough to take on retail and not just take on vending?
Okay, we are almost out of time here. We just wanted to open it up to the floor for 1 or 2 questions. I think there was a gentleman from the last session who wasn't able to get his question in. Maybe we could have that one, and then we can go from there.
What role does coffee play in all of your specific categories? And Jeff, obviously, I know you're in coffee. What role does specialty coffee play in your world, which you admitted to earlier is now demanded by the educated consumer?
It's definitely demanded by the consumer. They have it in their regular everyday life, so it's absolutely necessary to bring that to the business. It's also important to secure the business in the first place, because everybody's looking to, how do I hire and retain employees? They have to be able to offer that so they know what they're looking for. So it becomes vital for the operator or the business themselves to provide that to their employees, and for the operator to offer it to the employer.
Thank you. I kind of knew your answer. I'm curious more about these two.
I'm curious too.
Yeah, in our micro markets, actually, coffee is our #1 seller. And having a great coffee program that allows employees access to that at any moment of their workday is a game changer. When I install a micro market and they see the coffee machine, that's usually the thing that they're excited about the most. Oh my gosh, we have coffee finally, and it's not an old gross Keurig, or it's not an old gross this or that or whatever. Or a vending machine that's never cleaned, or you hear the stories all the time. They love the coffee. It's the 3 p.m. pickup, or pick me up. They grab a coffee and go grab a chocolate bar. We find that it drives sales a lot of times, because a lot of people are getting a snack, a pastry item, that kind of thing. And they also love, now coffee machines are so versatile. They don't just do black coffee. You can get a latte, you can get a mocha, you can do all of these fancy iterations. And so it allows us to offer a customized experience to that individual based on how you like your coffee. And it doesn't have to be identical to how your colleague likes their coffee, right? So it allows us to customize that really well, and it's a game changer, I think, in markets for sure.
Thank you.
Are you in the coffee business?
I'm a roaster.
So we don't.
I knew yours would be the most difficult.
I mean, coffee is. You have to have coffee if you're running a micro market in a corporate environment. Like, not only do people want coffee, it's the most profitable part of the business, because and the perceived value of coffee and the actual cost are quite. There's a huge gap versus anything else. Like fresh food, sure, you can sell a $12, $13 meal. The costs are also really high. So it's a combination. Like, if you're running a market, you have to think about your blended margins, blended costs, and coffee is definitely one of those things that not only gets you in the door, but also makes you money in the long run. Coffee in semi-public spaces requires specialty vending machines that dispense coffee. Micromart doesn't do those machines. But I do see the opportunity for coffee in all kinds of environments, like airports, where you probably have seen them or used them in the past, like different semi-public spaces. It is a consumable that most people want to, it's coffee and tea, but mostly coffee. I think the opportunity for for operators is to, again, think about the blended portfolio of products that are going to get you not only your delivery economics, so that every time the driver goes there, they can make money, like whatever they're dropping off, whether it's some coffee, some micro market products, fresh meals. That blended delivery economic has to be profitable, right? So coffee gives you that lever to have a high profit margin product that drives your delivery economics. So it's a great lever to have as an operator. If you don't have coffee, it's also okay, but you have to think about what can I do now to drive up sort of the blended delivery economics.
Right.
because you're in coffee, I don't want to answer this from yes, you have to have coffee. And I respect the panelists as well. Majority of micro-marts don't have coffee, and they're still quite successful. So you can still build a pretty successful business without coffee. And I also think that you shouldn't try to do everything, right? Like if you try to do everything, you're gonna fail because you won't be great at it. You have to be great at the things you do. So if you're gonna do coffee, make it great. Work with the best coffee suppliers. Get the best coffee machines and create the best coffee experience. If you're not gonna go in with that mindset, someone else will, and then they'll beat you. So then so my philosophy is try to simplify your business, find a few things that are going to make you money and that will make you really good at what you do. And focus on that, and don't try to do everything just because everyone else is doing it. It doesn't matter. Like you have to find your niche, and then at the end of the day is watching the numbers, right? If it's making money, great. Yeah.
Just to be cognizant of time here, I'm just going to ask one more question for the panel here, and that's, how has being a CAMA member benefited you?
Well, events like this, getting together to be able to socialize, meet people in the industry, talk about trends. I think it's vital for everybody to be on top of the latest trends, and this is a great opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, agreed. And as part of the CAMA board, it's been awesome because we've really been able to connect with so many people. Jim, I've called him numerous times to connect us with the network of amazing operators that we have. And there's a lot of amazing benefits to being a part of CAMA. And so, definitely reach out. Let's have a conversation about what that looks like for you and how CAMA can help you and support your business and help you kind of grow into the future.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a pretty new member of CAMA.
We like new members too.
And I'm optimistic of what CAMA can be in the next 10 years, and I want to help it do that. And I think we're seeing a wave of sort of new operators that need the education, need the connection, need the face-to-face, and it's awesome to be here to meet everybody in person because so much of what I do is online. And I don't get to experience this. And I think a lot of the times the people that show up in person is gonna get the most out of it. So I wanna help this organization, continue to grow and continue to be what it's supposed to be. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being part of CAMA.
Can you guys tell us how to follow your podcast?
Yeah, I was about to do that. I was about to do that, right? So you can follow us at Vendtelligence on Instagram, YouTube, and anywhere else that you could find your podcast. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thank you to the panelists here. Any final words you want to say, Kayin?
That's it. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to our special episode at the 2026 Convenience U Trade Show. There's some more exciting content to come in Season 2. We will have more exclusive interviews with industry experts. This is something you don't want to miss. Follow us on our socials for more and to stay up to date with our latest and greatest content. Until next time.